still can't sleep on your side. There's your coffee cup, the lipstick stain fades with time. If I could dream long enough, you'd tell me I'll be just fine. I'll be just fine. So I drown it out like I always do, dancing through our house with the ghost of you, and I'll chase it down with the shot of truth, dancing through our walls with the ghost of you. Cleaning up today, found that old Zeppelin shirt you wore when you ran away, and no one could feel your hurt. We're too young, too dumb to know things like love, but I know better now. So I drown it out like I always do, dancing through our house with the ghost of you, and I'll chase it down with the shot of truth, dancing through our walls with the ghost of you. Too young, too dumb to know things like love. Too young, too dumb. So I drown it out like I always do, dancing through our house with the ghost of you, and I'll chase it down with the shot of truth, that my feet don't dance like they did with you. Remember the words you told me, love me till the day I die. Surrender my everything, 'cause you made me believe you're mine. Yeah, you used to call me baby, now you're calling me by name. Takes one to know one, yeah, you beat me at my own damn game. You pushing, I'm pulling away from you. I giving, you take, Young blood, say you want me, out of your life, and I'm just a dead man walking tonight. But you need it, yeah, you need it all of the time, yeah. Young blood, say you want me, back in your life, so I'm just a dead man crawling tonight. 'Cause I need it, yeah, I need it all of the time, yeah. Lately our conversations end like it's the last goodbye. Yeah, one of us gets too drunk and calls about 100 times. So who you been calling, baby? Nobody could take my place. When you looking at those strangers, hope to God you see my face. Young blood, say you want me, out of your life, and I'm just a dead man walking tonight. But you need it, yeah, you need it all of the time. pushing, I'm pulling away from you. I give and I give and I give and you take, giving you take. You're running around and I'm running away from you, from you. Young blood, so you want me, out of your life, and I'm just a dead man walking tonight. But you need it, yeah you need it, all of this time, yeah. Young blood, so you want me back in your life, so I'm just a dead man crawling tonight. 'Cause I need it, yeah I need it, all of this time, yeah. Pushing, I'm pulling away from you. I give and I give and I give and you take, giving you take. Young blood, so you want me out of your life, and I'm just a dead man walking tonight. I need your love to light up this house. I wanna know what you're all about. I wanna feel you tonight. I wanna tell you that it's alright. I need your love to guide me back home. When I'm with you, I'm never alone. I need to feel you tonight. I need to tell you that it's alright. We'll never be as young as we are now. It's time to leave this old black and white town. Let's seize the day, let's run away. Don't let the colors fade to gray. We'll never be as young as we are now. As young as we are now. I see myself here in your eyes. Stay awake till the sunrise. I wanna hold you all night. I wanna tell you that you're all mine. I feel our hands intertwine. Hear our hearts beating in time. I need to hold you all night. I need to tell you that you're all mine. We'll never be as young as we are now. It's time to leave this old black and white town. Let's seize the day, let's run away.
I'm waking up to ash and dust. I wipe my brow and I sweat my rust. I'm breathing in the chemicals. I'm breaking in, shaping up, then checking out on the prison bus. This is it, the apocalypse. Whoa, I'm waking up. I feel it in my bones, enough to make my system blow. Welcome to the new age, welcome to the new age. go. The sun hasn't died. Deep in my bones, straight from inside. I'm waking up. I feel it in my bones. Enough to make my system blow. Welcome to the new age. To the new age. Welcome to the new age. To the new age.
Oh, Father, tell me, do we get what we deserve? Oh, we get what we deserve. And where down we go, oh, 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 where down we go, oh, 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 oh. So where down we go, oh, way down we go. Oh, you let your feet run wild. Time has come as we all go down. Yeah, but for the fall, my heart, do you dare to look me right in the eyes? Yeah. Oh, 'cause they will run you down, down to